Hey guys, Tarke here, and today I'm going to be doing my 3.7 Legion patch note breakdown. Now this is a breakdown from my personal opinion, skipping 90% of the stuff in here. I'm sure Carve will have a 5-hour video, so if you want that, check out Carve's channel. So, the main thing which really stood out to me, and it affects every single character that gets to maps, you no longer have to pay Varl Orbs equal to the cost in Chaos Orbs to apply Zana's crafting modifiers to corrupted maps.
I'm Steam, dude!
Thank you for that, Twitch Prime. This change is insane. This is a ridiculous buff to everyone. One thing I will also mention, they've done ridiculous changes to the passive skill tree. This is crazy. They've changed all the bow clusters, all the wand clusters. Even if you're not a melee boy, they've changed the routing of, like, the entire tree. So whatever build you play in 3.7, you have changes. It is insane. These tree changes are litty. So, now let's get into... Thank you, Zigzags. The actual things which stand out, the skills, the abilities, all of that good. What stands out to me? Cleave.
I'm Steam, dude!
So, many abilities gained a bunch of flat fizz per. You're like, okay, not that crazy. Cleave deals damage equal to, gains some flat. Nothing too crazy, but if you go to the threshold jewel, no longer grants increased air effects for cleave based on the number of nearby enemies, and now grants +1 to cleave's radius for each enemy up to 10. Most packs have at least 10 enemies in them, so this is +2 radius most of the time. A minimum like +5 radius. This is insane. Cleave, woohoo, big boy. Cleave is what I'm most excited for. Dual Strike hits really hard. Dual Strike is litty. So, now deals base damage equal to 125 from 58, slight buff, 170 from 104.
I'm Steam, dude!
Pretty good, thanks to that Twitch Prime. Now has 50% increased crit, up to 107% at level 20. That's big. That's big. Now has 100% more critical strike chance against enemies that are on 4 life. That is 100% more critical. That's kind of ridiculous. Now deals 30% more damage with hits and ailments against enemies on full life. That's like a support gem. Now has an attack speed multiplier of 70, so that's a nerf. So it's like lost some. Now gains 0.5 multi, 1% crit chance per quality. This is like ridiculous. One thing worth noting with Dual Strike is you're going to want to not use Leap Slam or Shield Charge. This is a running build. The reason being is if you deal any damage with Shield Charge or Leap Slam, then you'll have the enemy not on full life. So you want to focus on abilities which run, or the new dash ability, which doesn't do damage. You can still use them, but it'll just feel better. Dual Strike, if you would say Tarke, play any ability, play Dual Strike. Alternatively, you could just heal the enemies. That is also an option. Flicker. I'm not really going to be playing much Flicker. I used to play a lot of Flicker, but the problem with Flicker Strike is it gives me headaches now. They haven't buffed my dyslexia, sadly. Okay. Now deals base damage equal to 142 from 130. 168 from 160. That's pretty minor. It's pretty whatever. Now grants 15% chance to gain a frenzy charge on hit at all levels. That's pretty big. Now grants a buff that provides 20% increased movement speed. That's pretty insane. Now has an attack speed multiplier of 120. And more frenzy charge. So if you have a max quality, that's 20% frenzy on hit. I could see people doing like increased skill effect duration Flicker Strike just to maintain this movement speed buff. Like, just weaving it in. I don't know. It seems pretty nutty just having this, like, crazy movement speed tied in there. Very, very strong. Next up, we have Frenzy. Frenzy had a damage effectiveness, basically the same. But it has now deals 5% more attack damage per Frenzy charge. Now has 5% more attack speed per Frenzy charge. Frenzy could be, like, a very interesting single target ability. Very, very interesting. Ice Crash. Ice Crash and Earthquake now do big boy damages. So it gained a bunch of effectiveness. Base area is 20% larger. And now adds up to 254 cold damage at level 20. I wish it was physical. That'd been better, but oh well. Yeah, that's just a lot of damage. Earthquake had a similar treatment. Incorrect spelling. Igor, best album. Woohoo! Now deals base damage equal to and has an effectiveness of 120 and 109, so slight increase to effectiveness. Aftershock now has up to 254 physical, very strong. Attacks you multiplier just means it hits like it's slower wind up. Radius of the Aftershock is +2. And yeah, it's got a bunch of flat fizz, got a little bit of extra radius in there. Pretty solid. Vol Earthquake also looks very sexy. And then we have Reeve. Reeve is in a pretty interesting spot too. So Reeve doesn't have any crazy like flat damage added to it, sadly. But it did gain a little bit of effectiveness. The base radius is now 2 larger. Okay, so it's better at the base. It lost it from the top end, but it's the same overall, but feels better with nothing. And the big boy now loses stages incrementally after a short period without hitting anything, rather than all at once. That is huge. It feels bad that it doesn't have the flat. There are quite a lot of abilities which just don't have flat. Like, Wild Strike is a good skill currently, but doesn't have flat on there. That really hurts. But yeah, Reeve is in a really good spot. Really, really good spot. Molten Shell and Val Molten Shell look disgusting. So, now creates a buff that can take damage equal to 20% of your armor. So getting 50k armor is very realistic. Very realistic. That's a 10k absorb. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The support gems. All the support gems look strong. All of the support gems look very strong. I'm not going to read through them all individually. The Rage one seems most interesting to me. And now we get into the changes which make me go, sad Tarke. Sad Tarke. Soul Rend. This hurts my soul. I've made a video which is all about Bane, Soul Rend, and Essence Drain in 3.7. They wanted to nerf how powerful Soul Rend was, nerf the damage, don't nerf the quality of life. By nerfing the radius, this is a nerf to the single target damage, meaning it requires more uptime. It needs more investment, and it is worse at map clear. So it's worse at map clear, worse at boss damage. It just feels worse all around. Whereas Bane, they just hit the damage a little bit. It's like Essence Drain was already better, but it feels bad, man. The next one is the Fortify change. So they kept hyping how they're going to buff Fortify. Fortify now deals more melee physical damage. I wish it was just more melee damage. Yeah. It feels bad. If you're playing a pure Ellie build, not a conversion build, this sucks. So it's like, why make it niche? It's still not a very good support gem anyway. You'd still rather use a different support gem. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like it. I don't really like it. And then the last one, which I feel good about and I feel bad about, so Bayclast. Bayclast was put in the patch notes twice. This is a big buff. Big buff. However, it's not a positive buff to Bayclast. It is a sad Bayclast. There was a miscommunication regarding the number of weapon-specific support gems when discussed on Bayclast earlier, and for that we apologize. This is in reference to 2 of the new support gems, Shockwave and Close Combat. Shockwave is a new support gem which only works for maces and staves, and Close Combat is a support gem that works only for axes and swords. On the Bay class with Jonathan, and then later with Chris, we got hyped up on having new support gems for every single weapon type. This was a very big selling point. I even said to Jonathan during that Bay class episode, will I be disappointed if I play a Claw Viper Strike build? And to quote Jonathan, if that's the case, we fucked up. I'll make sure that's good for you. So I was really hyped for a really cool Claw support gem, and there is none. And I feel bad because I made people excited for something on my platform, and it's not there. I don't know, it feels bad. I would have preferred it if they just said, we tried to make a Dagger and Claw one and we weren't happy, or it didn't, like, pass QA. But, it's cool. It's cool. I'm glad they mentioned it. But it just does feel a little bit bad because it was, like, my thing. So I feel like I've misled people. That's a feels bad, man. It is worth mentioning, however, that Melee Splash is interesting. So the Melee Splash support gem has been changed a little bit, and apparently will have overlapping splashes. So it might be, like, broken. We don't know without playing it. But this might be good. Viper Strike might still be good. Maybe. There's a possibility. I wouldn't count on it. But yeah, the real takeaway, I would say that all of the changes in here, I would agree with. There are some spicy ones, but I think it's for the state of the game going forward, it's solid. And the new passive skill tree is super exciting. So, am I excited for Legion with these patch notes? Yes. Very much so. Would recommend. I'm Tarke. Starter builds coming soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.